He never expected that I'd use his own messages to orchestrate his downfall. I once believed I was living a Hollywood fairy tale, until the day I caught him in the act with my closest friend. That was the moment I realized my life was built on betrayal. What came next was a plan so meticulously crafted that it would leave him reeling and me reclaiming my life. Let me take you back to where it all began. I grew up in Somerton, Georgia, a charming place full of picket fences, friendly neighbors, and church potlucks. From a young age, people said I stood out, a future pageant queen, they'd tease. By senior year of high school, I was the head cheerleader, crowned homecoming queen, and voted most likely to succeed. The path ahead seemed bright, but in a different way than small-town folks imagined. I dreamed of bigger stages and greater successes than Somerton could ever offer. One person who never quite understood my hunger to leave was Caleb Webb, my high school sweetheart. He was the sweet, steady type, worked part-time at his family's auto shop, and planned to stay in Somerton forever, just like his parents and grandparents had. He'd talk about opening his own garage one day, building a house near the river, maybe even starting a family. To be fair, there's nothing wrong with that dream. In fact, it was warm and safe. But I craved something more dazzling. I wanted to see my name in lights, or at least be in a place where the lights never went out. So when I got accepted into a college in Los Angeles, my first instinct was to leap at the opportunity, no matter the cost. Caleb wanted me to stay in Georgia, or at least try long distance, but I was too impatient to compromise. We fought one steamy summer night, and I still remember the heartbreak in his eyes when I said goodbye on his front porch. "You don't have to do this," he pleaded. "We can figure something out." But I refused. I was determined to escape, to chase that elusive bigger life. I left for LA, thinking I could return home any time if I needed to. Little did I know how drastically my life would change before I ever thought of coming back. College in Los Angeles was both exhilarating and exhausting. I was juggling a full class schedule by day and waitressing at a trendy rooftop bar by night. I spent my free moments exploring the city, starstruck by Hollywood's glitz and the endless possibilities spread out beneath neon signs. It was at a private networking event my junior year that I first met Trent Barrington, the man who would forever alter my life's path. He was in his mid-30s and had made his fortune investing in tech startups. It was rumored he could turn anything he touched into gold. Tall, with sharp features and an even sharper suit, he had an aura that pulled people in. I was serving hors d'oeuvres when we locked eyes. Trent struck up a conversation, and unlike the usual swarm of arrogant LA hotshots, he seemed genuinely curious about me. "What's your major? What are your dreams?" he asked. Ignoring the gaggle of well-dressed socialites around him, I was flattered and, yes, a little starry-eyed. It felt like being seen for the first time in a city that tends to swallow people whole. We exchanged numbers, and soon enough, we were dating. I was drawn to his confidence, the way he seemed to belong everywhere and nowhere, like he was always on the cusp of his next big deal. He took me to five-star restaurants I'd only read about in magazines, to red carpet events where celebrities brushed past me as if it were normal. It was intoxicating. The Georgia girl in me couldn't resist the sparkle he offered. He proposed the day I graduated college. We were in a beachside cabana in Malibu. Trent had a dazzling diamond ring and a soft smile. My heart soared. I believed I was about to start a life of endless opportunity with someone who truly cared about me. The next day I began planning my perfect future, unwittingly stepping into a web of secrets and lies that would later strangle every dream I had. We married at a sprawling estate in Beverly Hills, a lavish affair with a guest list that read like a who's who of tech moguls and Hollywood elites. There was a designer gown, custom ice sculptures, a fireworks display. Everything glimmered with wealth. My parents, wide-eyed at the extravagance, tried to keep up appearances, but I could see they felt out of place. Still, seeing me happy, they gave me their blessing. After the honeymoon in Fiji, we moved into a breathtaking penthouse overlooking the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern art on every wall, a rooftop pool, anyone would have envied it. Trent, ever the provider, told me not to worry about finding a job. "Focus on being my partner, building our life together," he said. At first, it felt like a dream. No more balancing classes and waitressing. Instead, I had personal shoppers, spa appointments, ladies' luncheons, and glamorous parties. But as the months passed, the shine began to tarnish. I realized I was isolated, with Trent away on business more often than not. His traveling seemed endless. London one week, Tokyo the next, always chasing the next startup deal. At home, I had no purpose. When I tried volunteering or considered taking some part-time work, Trent would brush it off. Why would you waste your time on that? He wasn't cruel exactly. He just believed our roles were set. He brought in the money. I maintained an image of perfection. My once fiery ambition flickered in the background, overshadowed by the new expectations placed upon me. Eventually, I started doubting everything. My marriage, my choices, myself. Late at night, staring out at the sprawling city, I'd wonder if I'd traded my soul for a gilded cage. That feeling of emptiness gnawed at me until I could hardly breathe. Pause for effect. And that was before everything truly fell apart. By our second anniversary, we were hosting more parties to keep up appearances. Trent liked to flaunt his success. Perfect wife on his arm, power connections in every room. Yet behind closed doors, we barely spoke. His controlling tendencies intensified. He picked my outfits, suggested how I should style my hair, even corrected my grammar if it sounded too country. I tried to speak up once, confessing I missed the small joys of working, of being independent. He shrugged it off. Why fight traffic and deadlines when you can enjoy a life of leisure, he said. Our dynamic felt lopsided and oppressive. Whenever I tried to push back, he'd either dismiss my concerns or shower me with expensive gifts to distract me. It worked less and less as time went on. One night, he came home from Tokyo, dropped his suitcase, and immediately locked himself in his home office. Determined to reconnect, I knocked on the door. Through a crack, I glimpsed him on a video call with a woman. She was laughing at something he said, and they both seemed intimately familiar with each other. My stomach twisted, but I had no proof of wrongdoing, just an uneasy feeling that my husband was slipping further away. I retreated, heart pounding, questions spinning in my head. Who was she? A colleague? A new startup client? Something more? I tried to soothe myself. Maybe it was innocent, but that uneasy feeling wouldn't let me go. I started paying closer attention to Trent's behavior, noticing how secretive he was with his phone, how he'd smile at texts he quickly hid from view. I told myself I was being paranoid, but the feeling grew each day, whispering that something dark lurked beneath the veneer of our perfect life. Sometimes, our worst suspicions proved painfully accurate. Late one evening, Trent left for an impromptu meeting, but forgot his tablet at home. It pinged with a message, and I glanced at the screen. My heart froze at the words. Can't wait to see you again, my love. Attached was a selfie of a woman I recognized, Vanessa Connors, my childhood best friend from Somerton. No, it had to be some kind of sick joke. I read it again, mind racing in circles. Vanessa, the one who used to braid my hair at sleepovers, who cried with me when I broke up with Caleb, who told me how proud she was of my new LA life. The text was undeniably from her. My love. My mind reeled. My first impulse was to break something, shatter every fragile piece of my once perfect world. Instead, a cold, still anger flooded my veins. I needed to be smart, not impulsive. If Vanessa was in LA, there was a reason. Perhaps they'd been seeing each other for weeks, months. Who knew? I took screenshots, forwarded them to myself, and placed the tablet exactly where Trent left it. Pause for effect. How dare they? The betrayal stung like a physical wound. My husband, the man who insisted on perfect loyalty from me, was carrying on an affair with my oldest friend. It was an offense I could not and would not tolerate. And yet, as I stared at those messages, shock gave way to methodical thinking. I wanted them to pay for violating the trust I'd once given so freely. I didn't want to simply confront them in a screaming match. That would be too easy for them and too messy for me. I wanted something more. I wanted revenge that would expose their lies the way they'd exposed my heart. In that moment, I resolved, I will not be a victim. I will be the reckoning. First step, gather more evidence. If Trent taught me anything, it was how important information could be. Over the next few weeks, I carefully monitored his phone bills, credit card statements, and emails. It didn't take long to see hotel reservations, spa appointments, and random flower deliveries, none of which were meant for me. One day, I found flight receipts for a trip to San Francisco. He claimed it was for business, but the reservations included 2 first-class tickets, Trent Barrington and Vanessa Connors. My stomach churned, but I pressed on, fueled by a determination to see every detail. Each new discovery felt like a fresh stab to the heart, but I needed that pain to stay focused. Simultaneously, I reached out to a discreet but highly recommended divorce attorney, Miriam DuPont, who specialized in high-profile cases involving wealthy spouses. Miriam listened intently to my story, brows furrowing when I mentioned Vanessa. Betrayal by a spouse is bad enough. Betrayal by a friend is a double dagger, she said. I appreciated her sympathy, but what I really wanted was a plan. Miriam assured me I could gain significant leverage in a divorce if I had proof of marital misconduct. California might be a no-fault divorce state, but if Trent had used shared assets to fund his affair, there could be ways to negotiate a settlement that left me with a substantial portion. Document everything, Miriam advised. Emails, texts, financial records. The more you have, the better. I took her counsel to heart. With each new piece of evidence, I imagined the look on Trent's face when he realized how meticulously I'd exposed his double life. It would be glorious. But beyond the financial angle, I wanted them both to understand that I wasn't a naive trophy wife they could fool. I wanted a revenge so thorough that it would shake the foundations of their relationship and their reputations. Fate handed me the perfect scenario for a confrontation when Trent suggested we host an anniversary party, an annual event where he'd invite influential people from Silicon Valley, Hollywood, and beyond. Vanessa, apparently emboldened by her secrets, had the audacity to text me about reuniting for the celebration. It made my skin crawl, but I played along, feigning excitement. Little did she know I had a plan that would blindside them both. I hired a private technician to install discreet security cameras in our penthouse, some in the common areas, one in Trent's office, and one angled toward the hallway leading to our master suite. Yes, it might be legally gray, but I was determined to protect myself if they stooped to new lows under my own roof. The night of the party arrived. I wore a sleek silver gown, carefully curated to appear every bit the devoted wife. People poured in. Venture capitalists, film producers, high-end socialites. The place buzzed with champagne toasts and hushed conversations. Underneath the glamour, I felt my heart pounding like a war drum. Stay calm, I reminded myself. Tonight is about patience and the perfect reveal. Vanessa, stunning in a red cocktail dress, approached me with a bright smile. She had the nerve to hug me, her perfume wafting up as if everything were normal. "Caroline, you look amazing," she gushed, using that same sweet voice I remembered from high school. Inwardly, my anger spiked, but I forced a warm laugh and thanked her. Two-faced liar. Trent was playing the charming host, circulating the room with practiced ease. Every so often, I caught him and Vanessa exchanging furtive glances. My fury grew, but I kept my composure, sipping my champagne and greeting guests as though nothing was amiss. When the moment felt right, midway through the party, after a few toasts, I discreetly disappeared into the master suite. From my phone, I initiated the video feed of my hidden cameras. There, in a corner of the living room, I watched as Trent and Vanessa slipped away from the crowd and retreated into his office. They were alone. Lights dimmed. Perfect. I clutched my phone, watching them on the live feed. They kissed, laughed softly, and toasted each other with a stolen glass of champagne. I recorded every second. The betrayal was so blatant, it made me sick. But I stayed silent, letting the footage roll until they began talking about the future, discussing how they'd handle me, of all things. Vanessa suggested that once he broke the news, maybe I'd just move back to Georgia quietly. Trent seemed to think I'd be too docile to fight. "Caroline's not a threat," he said confidently. "She's too naive for that." At that, my rage flared, but I forced myself to remain focused. I had enough to wreck them both. I saved the clip to several secured online folders, just to be sure it couldn't mysteriously disappear. Then came the final act. I queued up a short video montage, the damning texts, the incriminating emails, receipts, and a snippet of their secret office encounter. I streamed it to the penthouse's main TV screen, interrupting the gentle background music in front of all our esteemed guests. "Is everyone enjoying the party?" I said, stepping forward to address the crowd. My voice trembled slightly, but I projected calm. Every eye turned toward me, expecting perhaps a toast. Instead, behind me on the massive screen, the evidence played. Texts from Vanessa with hearts and explicit references to hotel rendezvous. Emails about flights, dinners, intimate notes. Gasps and whispers rippled through the room. Pause for effect. Finally, the footage of Trent and Vanessa in his office flashed on the screen. I saw the horror on their faces in real time as guests turned to look at them. The polite mask Trent always wore melted into raw panic. Vanessa's face drained of color, her hands trembling at her sides. I let the video run for several seconds more, each one feeling like a small triumph. I turned back to the stunned audience. "I do hope everyone found that enlightening," I said quietly, my voice steady. "Please excuse me while I depart. The party is over." And with that, I walked out of my own penthouse, shoulders squared, heart hammering like a drumbeat of sweet revenge. The fallout was immediate. Texts, calls, and frantic messages flooded my phone. Some from people at the party, others from those who heard the gossip. Trent tried to reach me over and over, but I never picked up. The next day, I filed for divorce. My attorney Miriam was ready. Armed with proof of Trent's affair and the misuse of marital assets for that affair, we leveraged a settlement that ensured I'd walk away with far more than he ever anticipated. His pristine reputation took a severe hit. Many of his investors were scandalized, and at least one major deal fell through. He became the subject of industry gossip, a cautionary tale of mixing personal vices with high-stakes business. Vanessa's life crumbled just as hard. She'd moved to LA seeking new opportunities, but found that burning such a public bridge with me, her longtime friend, earned her no sympathy. Doors slammed shut. Friends she'd made in my circle ostracized her. Rumors swirled that she'd lose a major job offer when her moral character came into question. One of my acquaintances was a senior executive there, and word travels fast. Justice had been served. Some might say public humiliation is a cruel revenge. Maybe it is, but after the extent of their deception, it felt earned. I didn't relish hurting others, but I also refused to protect people who had gutted my life behind my back. When the dust finally settled, I realized LA no longer felt like home. I packed my things, leaving most of the high-end trappings behind. In truth, they'd never really belonged to me, only to a life I no longer wanted. I found myself back in Somerton, Georgia, welcomed by my parents with warm hugs and not a hint of judgment. People in town whispered about my glamorous rise and scandalous fall, but they were mostly kind. Neighbors brought me homemade pies, offering open ears and encouraging words. It was a far cry from the superficial pity I'd witnessed in LA. Here, people remembered me as Caroline Whitmore, the girl who cheered at football games and laughed too loud at the diner. Eventually, I crossed paths with Caleb again. We hadn't spoken in years. He showed up on my parents' porch one afternoon, wearing that same gentle smile I remembered. "I'm sorry about everything you went through," he said softly, "but I'm glad you're back." His simple, sincere words melted the armor I'd built around myself. He didn't ask about the gossip. He just cared that I was okay. That night, we took a walk by the river. I told him everything about Trent, Vanessa, and the party that turned into their downfall. When I finished, he took my hand in his, giving it a comforting squeeze. "You deserved better, Caroline," he said, and I knew he meant it. There was no pressure or expectation, just understanding. Over the next few months, we rediscovered each other. The same qualities that once felt too small town for my big ambitions now felt like a safe haven. In him, I saw genuine kindness, someone who valued me for who I was, not for how I could bolster his image. We took it slow, building a connection rooted in honesty and shared history. Day by day, I felt the bitterness of betrayal fade, replaced by a tender hope for the future. A full year has passed since I exposed Trent and Vanessa in that unforgettable scene. People still ask if I regret it. My answer is simple: no. The moral of my story isn't that we should all seek to humiliate those who wrong us. Rather, it's that sometimes justice must be seized with our own hands when others believe us too meek to fight back. Betrayal cuts deep, but it can also sharpen your resolve, pushing you to find the power you didn't know you possessed. In the end, my perfect life in LA was an illusion, but returning to my roots taught me a more genuine form of happiness, one defined by authenticity rather than appearances. Caleb and I aren't fairy tale perfect, but we're real, and that's a gift beyond measure. I don't need penthouse views and extravagant galas to feel content. I just need a place that feels like home and people who truly love me. Sometimes, the best revenge is reclaiming your life on your terms, breaking the chains you once thought held your dreams, and forging your own path forward. That's exactly what I did. And let me tell you, it feels great to finally be free.